I never thought my own family would turn against me. I never thought I'd walk into a room full of people who had known me my entire life. People who had seen me grow, cry, laugh, make mistakes, win, lose, and watch them look at me like I was a stranger. Or worse, like I was something to be ashamed of. But that's exactly what happened. And it all started with something so small, so ordinary, so harmless, that I still can't believe how far it spiraled. It started with a misunderstanding. A rumor. Whispers that grew into stories, stories that hardened into certainty, and certainty that turned into judgment so heavy that I almost drowned under it. It started with a lie. But not even mine. I grew up in a tight-knit family. The kind where everyone knew everyone's business, whether you wanted them to or not. Sunday dinners, shared holidays, church potlucks, unannounced visits. Privacy wasn't a thing in my family. We lived in each other's lives like tangled threads. And for the most part, I liked that. There was something comforting about belonging to a community that felt like a net. If you fell, you'd be caught. If you were hungry, someone was already making a plate. If life broke your heart, you didn't have to cry alone. But nets don't just catch you. They can trap you too. And when they decide you're the problem, there's nowhere to go. The insane accusation didn't come all at once. It showed up slowly, like smoke, long before the fire. I first noticed it the morning after my cousin Leah's engagement party. We had grown up like sisters. We shared secrets, inside jokes, hand-me-downs, and dreams. She was the one I used to stay up late with, whispering about what our lives would look like when we were adults. We promised we'd always have each other. But adulthood has a way of testing promises you made when your heart was still mostly innocence. The night of her engagement party, everyone was happy. Music, dancing, champagne, hugs, congratulating her. But I noticed something. Something quiet. Something in the background. Leah's fiancé, Marcus, kept looking at me. Not in the way men look at someone they're attracted to. No. It was a different kind of stare. A calculating one. Like he was studying me, reading me, trying to figure something out. I ignored it. It wasn't my business. It wasn't my party. And I wasn't going to make anything about me when it was her night. But the next morning, everything changed. I woke up to 14 missed calls. 8 from Leah. 6 from my mother. At first, I thought something terrible had happened. Maybe someone was hurt. Maybe someone had been in an accident. My heart was pounding as I called my mom back. She didn't say hello. She said, "Come to the house. Now." Her voice was flat. Cold. The kind of tone you only hear when something is very, very wrong. I didn't even change clothes. I grabbed my keys and went. My hands were shaking. I remember gripping the steering wheel so tightly that my fingers hurt. When I walked inside, the entire family was there. Aunts, uncles, cousins, even people I didn't talk to often, people who usually didn't care enough to show up unless there was gossip involved. They were all staring at me, like I was the problem, like I was already guilty. My mother didn't hug me. She didn't touch me. She just pointed to the couch and said, "Sit." My heart was thudding so loud I could hear it in my ears. Leah was crying. Not quietly, not subtly. She was sobbing, breathless, shaking, humiliated. Her fiancé, Marcus, stood next to her with his arm around her shoulders, like some protective hero. I still didn't know what was going on. Then my aunt spoke. The words came slowly, like she wanted each one to stab me. "Why," she said, "would you try to ruin your cousin's engagement?" I swallowed. What? My uncle crossed his arms like he was preparing to watch a trial. "Marcus told all of us what you did," he said. I blinked. What I did? I hadn't done anything. I had spent the entire party dancing, laughing, drinking punch, and hugging Leah. Marcus stepped forward, and I will never forget the look on his face. Fake sadness. Fake regret. Fake innocence. He said, "I didn't want to say anything, but I think she deserves to know the truth." I could feel my chest tightening. He took a breath. "You tried to kiss me last night. In the hallway." The room exploded. Voices. Gasps. My mother covering her mouth. Leah crying harder. And I just sat there. Frozen. Like my soul had stepped out of my body. It took me a full 30 seconds to be able to speak. "No," I said. My voice wasn't even loud. It was just broken. "No. I didn't. I would never. I would never do that." Marcus didn't flinch. Not even a blink. He kept going. "You were drunk. You said you always wondered what it would be like to be with me. You said we had a connection." I shook my head. My heart was beating so fast, I thought I might faint. I looked at Leah. Leah. My best friend. My sister, in everything but blood. She looked at me like she didn't know me. Like I was someone disgusting. I reached toward her. She flinched away. That hurt more than the accusation. I tried to speak again, but my voice cracked. "Please, you know me. You know I would never." She cut me off. Her voice was quiet, but the words were sharp enough to wound. "How could you do this to me?" That was the moment. The moment everything broke. Not when he lied. Not when the family believed him. But when she did. And I realized something in that moment that I have never forgotten. Truth means nothing if the wrong person tells the story first. Because once a lie becomes a narrative, your innocence becomes irrelevant. And that was only the beginning. The scandal hadn't even started yet. I didn't go home after that. I couldn't. I walked out of that living room like I was sleepwalking, like someone had pressed mute on the world. My mother called after me once, but she didn't follow. No one followed. No one even tried. The air outside felt heavy. I remember thinking it should have been raining. It felt like a scene that needed rain. But it was sunny. Bright. Warm. The kind of weather where life is supposed to feel simple and good. I drove without really thinking. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel, my chest tight, my eyes burning. I don't even know how I made it home. I sat in the parking lot of my apartment and just stared. Stared at nothing. Stared at everything. Stared at the version of my life that had existed just 12 hours earlier. And then I broke. Not loud. Not screaming. Not dramatic. Just quiet. The kind of crying that feels like something has been pulled out of your chest. Like grief. Like mourning. Because I knew something had died in that room. Not just trust. Not just family. Something in me. A version of myself that believed my people would always know the truth about me. I wiped my face eventually. I don't know how long I sat there. Long enough for the sun to start dipping. Long enough for my phone to buzz again. It was a text from Leah. Not a paragraph. Not a question. Just one sentence. I can't believe you did this to me. I typed. Deleted. Typed. Deleted. Anything I said would look like denial. Or defense. Or manipulation. When someone has already decided who you are, your truth just sounds like noise. So I didn't reply. I put my phone face down, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly alone. The thing about family scandals is that they don't sit still. They move. They grow. They change shape like smoke. By the time you realize what's happening, the story has taken on a life of its own. It took less than 3 days. 3. By day 3, every relative knew. By day 4, every family friend knew. By day 5, our church congregation knew. And no one called to ask if it was true. Not once. They didn't want the truth. They wanted the drama. I found out how bad it had gotten when I went to the grocery store. I was just reaching for a basket when I heard 2 women whispering near the produce section. She tried to steal her cousin's fiancé. No. With Marcus? Really? I always knew she was that type. Too quiet. The sneaky ones always are. I froze. They weren't even trying to be quiet. And then one of them turned, looked right at me, and smiled. Not a kind smile. A satisfied one. The kind people give when the world has confirmed the prejudice they already enjoyed believing. I walked out without groceries. I sat in my car again. I didn't cry this time. I felt hollow. That might be the worst part of being falsely accused. Not the anger. Not the sadness. The numbness. The way your emotions shut down because your heart can't process betrayal on that scale. But the worst part hadn't happened yet. The worst part was Leah. She blocked me. Phone. Socials. Everything. I wanted to scream. I wanted to shake her and say, "Do you really think I would destroy the person I love most?" But she wasn't listening. She wasn't interested. Because Marcus had gotten to her first. And once someone believes the lie, your innocence becomes a threat to the story they're trying to protect. Days passed. I stayed inside. Didn't answer the door. Didn't answer texts. Didn't go to work. I called in sick again and again. And something ugly started growing in me. Not hatred. Not bitterness. Something scarier. Doubt. What if I had done something that looked wrong? What if I accidentally gave the wrong impression? What if my memory was flawed? What if I was missing something? I went over the night again and again. The hallway, he claimed, I tried to kiss him in. I remember being there. Yes. But Leah was there too. The 3 of us had gone to get more drinks from the kitchen. Leah had gone ahead for a second because someone called her name. Marcus and I ended up in the hall for maybe 10 seconds. We talked about nothing. Literally nothing. He complimented the music playlist. I laughed. He smiled. We walked back into the living room. That was it. That was the entire moment he built the accusation on. A hallway, a smile, a moment alone. And suddenly, I was the villain in my own family story. But the why haunted me. Why would he do that? Why lie? Why choose me? I didn't have to wait long for the answer. It came from someone I never expected. My aunt. My mother's youngest sister. The only person who didn't look at me like I was filth. She came to my apartment one evening. No warning. Just knocked softly and waited. I almost didn't open the door. But something in me needed to see one person who wasn't condemning me. She sat down on my couch like she'd been carrying something heavy. And then she said, "Marcus told Leah that you tried to kiss him because he's hiding something." My heart stopped. She continued, "He didn't lie to get rid of you. He lied because you are the only one who knows him well enough to see it." I frowned. I didn't understand. Then she looked right at me and said the words that would unravel the entire story. "Marcus is cheating on Leah." Air left my lungs. I didn't speak. I couldn't. She nodded slowly. And he needed a reason to explain why you might act distant around him. He needed to control the narrative first. So if the truth ever came out, he could say you were jealous. My skin went cold. Jealous. That's what the whole lie was built on. Not desire. Not seduction. Jealousy. Because the only thing more believable than she tried to steal him was she wanted him but couldn't have him. That's the thing about rumors. People don't believe them because they make sense. They believe them because they confirm stories they already want to be true. Marcus wasn't protecting Leah. He was protecting himself. And he chose me as the sacrifice. Because he knew I wouldn't fight dirty. He knew I wouldn't lie back. He knew I would just break. And he was right. For now. Because this story wasn't over. Not even close. The truth was coming. And when it did, the entire family would have to face what they allowed to happen. The thing about lies is that they require maintenance. They need tending. They need energy. They need constant reinforcement to keep from falling apart. Truth though? Truth just exists. It waits. Sometimes quietly. Sometimes painfully. But it doesn't disappear. And Marcus's lie was already starting to crack. Not loudly at first. Not dramatically. Just subtly. A shift in tone. A look that lingered too long. A question asked one too many times. Because the thing about a person who chooses to lie is that they start to get paranoid that everyone else is lying too. They start noticing shadows that aren't there. They start slipping. And Marcus was slipping. 2 weeks passed before anything shifted publicly. I stayed mostly inside my apartment, partly to avoid people, partly because I didn't know how to exist in a world that believed a story I had no way to erase. It's strange how quickly your identity can be rewritten by others. You spend your whole life building your character, your reputation, your relationships, brick by brick, and one lie can burn the whole house down. I felt empty. Not angry anymore. Not sad. Just tired. Then one night, my phone buzzed again. It was a message from an unknown number. At first, I thought about ignoring it, but something made me open it. It was one sentence. I saw Marcus last night. My heart didn't race. It didn't even jump. It just steadied. I wrote back. Who is this? No answer. But a minute later, another text came in. He wasn't with Leah. This time, something sharp moved in my chest. Because I knew what that meant. Or, at least, I suspected. I tried calling the number. It didn't go through. Disconnected. But the seed had already been planted. Marcus was cheating. And someone else knew. Someone who cared enough to say it, but not enough to say who they were. And the truth, real truth, rarely stays hidden once it starts breathing. The next shift came from church. Of all places. Sunday mornings had always been routine in my family. We grew up in those pews. Those hymns. Those whispered amens. Those potluck casseroles. But I hadn't gone since the accusation. I wasn't stupid. I knew what community gossip sounded like. I knew they didn't want truth. They wanted spectacle. So when my aunt called and asked me to come with her just to sit quietly, just to take up space again, I almost said no. But something in me said yes. Maybe I was done hiding. Maybe I was done being erased. Maybe I was tired of being a ghost in a story that had my name in it. So I went. The church doors felt heavier than they should have. The room felt smaller than I remembered. People looked up as I walked in. Not everyone. Just enough. Just enough to remind me I was still the scandal of the season. I sat beside my aunt. A few songs passed. Then came the moment that changed everything. During the fellowship greeting. That part of service where everyone stands, shakes hands, hugs, pretends everything is peaceful. I saw him. Marcus. Standing 2 pews ahead. Holding Leah's hand. Leah looked thinner. Like she hadn't been eating. Her eyes had dark circles under them. And Marcus? Marcus looked nervous. Not guilty. Not sad. Nervous. Like a man who knows the door behind him is about to burst open. He turned, and in that moment his eyes met mine. And he looked away too fast. Guilty men avert, not avoid. There's a difference. Something in my chest clicked into place. Not hope. Not anger. Clarity. He was terrified. Because I was still here. Still breathing. Still present. Lies don't feel powerful when the person you lied about refuses to disappear. The service ended. People filed out. I stayed seated. I didn't know what I was waiting for, but I knew something was coming. And then it happened. A woman approached me. Older. Kind eyes. A face I recognized but couldn't place. She sat beside me, without asking, and said, quietly, I believe you. That was all. 3 words. But it felt like oxygen. I didn't realize I'd been breathing like a drowning person until that moment. I asked, barely above a whisper, why? She folded her hands. Because Marcus has done this before. My heart stopped. The room faded. I could barely hear her, but her words were needles threading through fog. Another girl. Before Leah. Same pattern. Same accusation. He lies first. So no one listens to the truth later. The world didn't spin. It didn't break. It just aligned. Suddenly, everything made sense. The accusation, the confidence, the performance, the tears, the timing. He had rehearsed this. This was not a spontaneous lie. This was a strategy. And the worst part? It had worked before. I went home. I sat in silence again. But this silence was different. It wasn't numbness. It was focus. I wasn't alone anymore. I had confirmation. I had pattern. I had motive. And truth, once it starts moving, moves fast. The next day, Leah showed up at my apartment. No warning. No call. Just a knock. When I opened the door, she looked tired. Not angry. Not betrayed. Just exhausted. She said, "Can we talk?" We sat on the couch. The same couch I had cried on. The same couch I had collapsed on. The same couch where I started to lose everything. She didn't look at me at first. She stared at her hands. Then she said, "Someone messaged me." My heart didn't speed up. It slowed down. Controlled. Measured. "They sent screenshots," she whispered. She handed me her phone. I didn't need to scroll to know. Messages. Late night meetups. Hotel addresses. Affection. Flirting. Not with me. With someone else. Someone not in our family. Someone he'd been seeing for months. Her hands were shaking. She started to cry again. But this time, it wasn't betrayal of me. It was betrayal of her. She whispered, "I believed him. I believed him instead of you. I didn't say I know. I didn't say I understand. I didn't say I forgive you." I just sat with her. Because sometimes, grief doesn't need answers. It needs presence. After a long silence, she finally asked, "Why didn't you fight back? Why didn't you scream at me? Why didn't you force me to believe you?" I looked at her and said the truest thing I've ever said. Because if you didn't already know who I am, there was nothing I could say to change your mind. She cried harder, and I let her, because for the first time in weeks, the guilt belonged to the right person. But the story wasn't over. Truth had entered the building. But consequences? Consequences were still on their way. And when they arrived, they would not be gentle. I always thought that when the truth finally comes out, it's loud, explosive. A dramatic movie moment where everyone gasps and apologizes and justice feels like an orchestra swelling behind you. But that's not how it happens. Truth doesn't enter a room like thunder. It enters quietly. And it sits. And it waits for people to notice. A family gathering was scheduled, not because of the situation, but because it was already on the calendar. A big Sunday dinner at my grandmother's house. The one place where showing up wasn't optional. The one place where arguments were supposed to stay outside. I hadn't planned on going. But Leah called the morning of. Her voice was hoarse from crying, but steady. "Come. Please." Not a demand. Not an apology. A request. And I knew, this time, she was coming to listen, not to judge. So I went. When I walked in, the room went quiet. Not dead quiet, but that thick quiet, the kind that fills the space behind polite conversation. Eyes flicked toward me, then away. People shifted in their seats. Everyone knew the scandal. No one knew the truth. Yet. Leah was standing near the dining room archway. Her eyes were swollen, but she wasn't crying anymore. She crossed the room. Slowly. Every step felt like a year. And then she hugged me. Tightly. The kind of hug that tries to hold together everything that has shattered. The room noticed. People don't miss shifts in alliances. My mother stood. Her face was confused, hopeful, afraid. "Leah," she asked. Leah stepped back, but kept her hand on mine. And then she spoke. Clear. Steady. Loud enough for the whole living room to hear. Marcus lied. The room didn't gasp. It froze. Stillness deeper than silence. You could hear every heartbeat. My uncle cleared his throat. Lied about what exactly? Leah inhaled. Not dramatic. Just real. About her. About everything. He made it all up. He was cheating. And he lied to cover it. Her voice cracked at the end. Not because she doubted me anymore, but because saying truth out loud makes it real in your bones. The room shifted in temperature. One aunt sat back like she'd just watched her favorite plot twist reveal. Another looked away in embarrassment. One cousin's expression changed from judgment to shame. My mother? She cried. Not loud. Just tears slipping down fast and silent. She whispered, "I'm so sorry." I nodded. But I didn't say it was okay. Because it wasn't. Not yet. Not even close. Then came the final blow. Marcus walked in. Late. Carrying a plate of food like he was stepping into a normal afternoon. He smiled when he saw Leah. Until he saw me. His smile faltered. Just for a second. But that second was enough. Because guilt lives in microseconds. Leah didn't yell. She didn't perform. She didn't give him the dramatic confrontation he deserved. She simply held up her phone. Screenshots. Messages. Dates. Times. Proof. He froze. Not shocked. Exposed. There's a difference. His face shifted into panic, but not sorrow. His hands moved, his mouth opened, excuses already forming. But Leah didn't let him speak. Don't lie to me again. Don't lie to them. Don't lie to yourself. Her voice didn't break. His did. He looked around, searching for supporters. But there were none left. Not after the performance he gave weeks earlier. Not after the tears he manipulated. Not after the trust he weaponized. Not after the damage he left behind. He opened his mouth again. But my grandmother spoke first. And my grandmother never raised her voice. Not once in my entire life. You took a daughter from us. Everyone listened. You turned us against our own blood. Marcus swallowed. Hard. She continued. I've seen men like you. Men who hide behind nice smiles and church clothes. Men who build themselves up by tearing others down. You walked into this family and thought you were smarter than all of us. Her eyes were sharp. Steel. Get out. The room didn't breathe. No one spoke. Marcus waited. Like he expected anyone to defend him. No one did. So he left. Not with dignity, but with the quiet, heavy shame of a man who finally saw the collapse of his own lie. The door closed. And the room stayed silent. Not awkward. Not tense. Just tired. The kind of tired that comes after truth has been forced to climb uphill, barefoot, through fire. Only to arrive late. After he left, no one knew what to say. How do you apologize for believing a lie? How do you look someone in the eyes when you helped break them? There is no script for that. No easy fix. And I didn't make it easier for them. I didn't say, it's okay. Because it wasn't. Apologies don't erase wounds. Forgiveness does not rebuild trust. Time does. Consistency does. Showing up does. I wasn't interested in being loved again. I was interested in being seen again. As myself. Not as the villain someone else invented. And that takes time. Later that night, when the house was nearly empty and everyone had drifted into small, quiet conversations, my mother sat beside me. She didn't speak at first. Then she said, I should have known. I looked at her. She was crying again. Not because of guilt this time, but because she finally understood the depth of harm. I said softly, I needed you to trust me more than the story. She nodded, her hand shaking as she reached for mine. I will. From now on, I will. And I believed her, not because she said it, but because she sounded like someone who had seen themselves in a mirror they didn't like. Sometimes, the apology isn't the words. It's the realization. But even with the truth revealed, there was still one more layer no one expected. Because Marcus wasn't just cheating. He was hiding something far bigger. And the person who knew it was the last person I ever expected to speak. You would think that once a lie is exposed, the story ends. But sometimes, the lie was only the smoke. The fire was something else entirely. The next morning, Leah showed up at my apartment again. She wasn't crying this time. She looked hollow. Not angry anymore. Not hurt. Just emptied out. She sat on my couch, the same place I had broken over and over, and for a long time, neither of us said anything. Then she whispered, I need to tell you something. Her voice sounded like someone speaking while walking barefoot across glass. I braced myself, because in stories like this, truth comes in layers. One removal at a time. Each one sharper than the last. She took a breath. Marcus didn't lie, because he wanted to protect our relationship. I didn't say anything. She continued. He lied because someone else in the family already knew he was cheating, and they were threatening to expose him. My stomach tightened. Family. Family. Of course. Rumors like ours don't start in the streets. They start at dinner tables. In kitchens. Whispered over prayer circles. Passed hand to hand like poison disguised as sugar. I asked, quietly, who? Leah looked at me the way someone looks before they drop a truth that changes everything. My mother. Her own mother. My aunt. The woman who had hugged me at Christmas. The woman who prayed loudly in church. The woman who had told everyone she wanted us all to love each other with pure hearts. I couldn't speak. Leah nodded like she was answering the question I couldn't form. She knew. She found out months ago. My heart was beating slow. Heavy. Waited. Why didn't she say anything? I asked. Leah's eyes filled with tears. Not the broken kind. The angry kind. Because she didn't want the wedding to be called off. Silence. A deep, suffocating silence. My aunt had chosen the image of family over the truth of family. She had chosen a celebration over my dignity. She had chosen a wedding over her daughter's future. And Marcus? Marcus had needed someone to blame when the truth finally surfaced. Someone who could take the fall gracefully. Someone who wouldn't fight back. Someone who loved too quietly. Someone like me. I wasn't chosen because I was guilty. I was chosen because I was safe. Later that week, I confronted my aunt. Not screaming. Not dramatic. Not movie scene revenge justice. Just reality. She didn't deny it. Not once. She simply said, families need to protect themselves. Some things are bigger than feelings. I looked at her, really looked, and I realized something. Some people don't love you. They love what you do for their image. They love the role you play. The peacekeeper, the healer, the quiet one, the one who absorbs harm and says nothing. I had been playing that role my entire life. But not anymore. I said simply, I am not your sacrifice. She looked stunned, like the idea of me choosing myself was an offense. But I didn't wait for her response. I walked away, not to be dramatic, but because I was done shrinking to fit a story I never agreed to be in. Healing didn't happen overnight. It didn't even happen in weeks. It was slow, uneven. Some days I felt strong. Other days I woke up remembering the looks, the whispers, the betrayal. But I didn't disappear. I went back to work. I went back to living. I rebuilt. Not with the same people. Not with the same trust. But with truth. This time I knew what loyalty actually meant.
And what it didn't.
Months passed. Leah didn't marry him.
She didn't even try.
She called off the engagement quietly. No social media announcement. No extended explanation. No dramatic statement. Just a quiet, resolute ending. She started therapy. She found her voice again. She apologized, not once, not in a rush, but consistently over time, in ways that were real.
And eventually?
We found each other again. Not the same, but still us. But we never spoke to my aunt the same way again. Respect and acceptance are not the same thing. Sometimes forgiveness is possible, but restoration is not. As for Marcus, I thought karma would take him down suddenly, dramatically, publicly. But life is more poetic than that. It didn't happen all at once. It happened slowly. People stopped trusting him. Stories emerged. Patterns revealed themselves. Whispers turned into warnings. And his reputation, the thing he lied so hard to protect, crumbled quietly. Actions don't disappear. They wait. I learned 3 things from that year. 1. A lie will always choose the person least likely to defend themselves. Silence is a weapon, but it can be taken away. 2. Family is not defined by blood. It's defined by who chooses you when choosing you is inconvenient. 3. When someone believes the worst about you without asking, they were never on your side to begin with. And that realization hurts. But it also frees you. Because once you stop begging to be understood, you start living. Fully. Unapologetically. Without permission. I wasn't the villain. I was the truth no one wanted to face. But now they have to. And I am still here. Microphone OUTRO for your Minimax narrator. If you've ever been accused of something you didn't do, if you've ever watched people you love choose to believe a lie about you,
I see you.
I hear you. I know that pain. You are not alone. You're not crazy. And you're not what they said you were. Thank you for listening to my story. If you want more stories like this, more truth, more healing, more revelations, like, comment, and subscribe. Your story might be next.